Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update.
Welcome to Industry Insight. I'm Lynn Lee, and today we are talking about something that's quietly rewriting the rules of how businesses operate, respond, and scale. Now, for years, we've been promised smarter automation, bots, workflows, virtual assistants, but in practice, most of it has been clunky, they're limited, and endlessly manual behind the scenes. Well, that's starting to change. A new wave of AI agents is emerging, not just to answer questions, but to take action. These are now systems that can reason, access your business tools, follow up with customers, and even close the loop, all without waiting for human intervention. But for all the excitement, there's also friction, because building these kinds of agents, the kind that actually work across real environments, has traditionally meant months of engineering effort, fragmented tools, and serious complexity. So what's shifting? What are the use cases that are working today? And how are companies moving beyond chatbots into something more capable, more scalable, and more secure? To unpack all of that, I'm joined by Christopher Conolly, Director of Solutions Engineering for Asia Pacific and Japan Communications Business at Twilio, which is one of the key players helping businesses build the communication and automation layers that support this new kind of AI. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me this afternoon, Lee.
Now, let's get right into it, Chris. Most of our listeners are very tech savvy, and chances are they already understand what AI agents are. But here's the thing. Those who are starting to jump on this bandwagon are likely to be still grappling with one big challenge. How do you go from proof of concept to something that's actually, scalable, live, and delivering results?
Well, we see a lot of organizations not just dipping their toe in with AI, but they're full into this mode now for the last 12, 24 months. The challenge that we see for a lot of organizations is use case selection, finding something that is really there and tangible, that's going to have business results, that has a clear clarity on ROI. We see a lot of organizations that sort of struggle with a lot of data governance as well. And so scaling that out to be, the next big thing for all organizations is really getting clarity on those items.
Okay, so you think that's where they're getting stuck at?
We think they're getting stuck in multiple areas. Certainly having a clear ROI, we see a lot of experiments that have failed. We've seen a lot of experiments that are still in their fledgling stages. But we also see a bit of I'll call it a contention between sometimes the CTO organization and the CIO. The CTOs, the engineers, they want to get out there and start building great AI capabilities quickly. They've got pressures from their product managers to do so. But we also see a bit of a slowdown with the CIO saying, well, we need to have data governance structures. We need it to be compliant. We need it tested. And there's a slight fear underlying that of making sure that virtual agents are just as compliant as human agents in delivering experiences to end customers.
Okay, so we're kind of talking about unlocking a plumbing problem, so to speak, connecting agents to the systems they need in the background across the channels customers already use?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I like to think of it is that virtual agents really need to have access to data, tools, systems, and skills like your human agents do. We're seeing the early stage of that now with the agentic frameworks coming out, where a virtual agent can start to do one task really, really well. Mm-hmm. But when we think about scaling that to the size of a customer service organization, you just think about the humans that you have in the loop today. They have access to so many tools and systems, and really we need to scale that out with AI agents so they have access to those same skills and tools in a systematic way that they can make use of the data and perform actions like your real human colleagues.
Okay, but infrastructure is important too, isn't it?
Infrastructure selection is absolutely critical. We've seen that you need to have the right partners in place to make sure that you've got low latency applications, data in region, know where your data is going. And that infrastructure or platform play is what we're seeing as fertile ground for a lot of new players to leverage the capabilities that platform players have built and leaned into and build those higher order use case functions very, very quickly. But you're absolutely right. Infrastructure is king in terms of getting it right and getting that foundational pieces in play so that you can go and innovate quicker.
Okay, and now, assuming you've got the vision, you've got the infrastructure, you know where AI agents could create impact, the next barrier, I would think, is usually, execution and implementation. It's one thing to build a demo that calls an API or sends a message. A very different thing to scale that across real environments securely and even repeatedly. So, Chris, what's getting in the way here? And what are the teams that are scaling doing correctly or differently?
Look, cross-functional teams really do need to come together to reimagine businesses with AI. And a lot of times there are blockers to do that. And like you say, scaling AI isn't just about the agent, it's about the intelligence and the organizational structure behind that. And what I mean by that, I want to unpack that organizational structure component for a second. Mm-hmm. Every organization or every sub-department is grappling with AI at the moment. And everyone has their own tooling, their own sort of processes, and it's changing the way that we think about organizational structure. How do I make sure that my legal department is in control of the things that they are best equipped to deal with? And I think about the notion of agentic frameworks being a way to achieve that, where you can start to divide up the work, you divide up the requirements and give virtual agents to different departments that can essentially specialize in what they're great at. So that you can say, the marketing department, well, you might be structured in a certain way today, but when we think about AI in the future, that might be writing copy or delivering new materials, that they have virtual agents that they can control that are compatible with the legal department that might be able to do a review as well. So having a buddy, and so if you're in the organizational world or organizational design, thinking through what a agentic workforce might be along with your human workforce is really where a lot of the effort is going into at the moment.
Okay. And apart from that, do we see any other bottlenecks in terms of where the development process takes place?
You see a couple of bottlenecks. This is kind of an old problem, but it's still relevant today, which is getting access to data, particularly customer data, through multiple systems is still a challenge. Organizations have data in many, many different systems that aren't generally compatible with each other off the shelf. So there is a lot of effort in getting that data right and understanding what is relevant right now. So with all the customer data that organizations have, we might have it, but we don't know what is relevant in the moment to deal with the customer that is in front of you. And that is true for virtual agents as well. So a lot of the data silos, breaking those down, making sure that data is accessible between systems is important. And that lack of sort of shared infrastructure, lack of unified data across different functions is really a big challenge for the success of AI agents long term.
I see. It's also about ability to maintain all this data, not just in terms of volume, but also how many use cases teams can reasonably support across departments, I would think.
I certainly agree. And especially in the customer service world, every organization is chasing some very practical use cases. I think the early ones that we've seen with those use cases are around very systematic things that AI can do well, but that's very quickly expanding. So to give you an example there, appointment bookings in the AI world is something that's very tangible and very practical that you can hand off to a piece of AI and have that done very well. And that sort of transcends different organizational departments. It could be a sales use case there where we're setting an appointment up for a future meeting with the customer, or even a support use case. Hey, I'm going to help you troubleshoot your new cable modem installation. Let's set up an appointment and step you through the steps. These type of use cases are very achievable today with AI, but as we look a little further afield, we want to do much more complex solving with customers, maybe in the financial sector in particular. The virtual agents need access to a lot more data in a richer framework so they can operate in a constrained way.
I like the example you gave. Let's talk more about impact. Where are you seeing businesses apply this in ways that move the needle?
Well, from a Twilio perspective, we focus a lot on communications across all different types of channels. So a lot of the use cases that we're seeing today is in communications. So it is smarter routing of customers as they come through your web channels, as they come through your voice channels, and peeling off a lot of the low-value tasks that might go to a human today, but really are serviced by a virtual agent tomorrow. So the early signs that we're seeing with the customers that are doing this very well, they're starting to give a little bit more trust to the virtual agent to pick the right path and solve some of the basic issues. For example, password resets. It's a very simple use case, but it's one that almost every organization that has a web presence has. It's low value for the organization. It's a frustration for the end customer. And it's something that a virtual agent can do in a matter of moments without having to wait in a queue for several minutes for an agent to take you through a multi-step process. It's the type of task that is very easily handed off to a virtual agent, even before we get to agentic AI.
Oh, so it's about speed, I suppose, consistency, and being more responsive across touch points as well, and of course, cutting costs.
Absolutely. We always see a cost-cutting conversation, but we're also seeing a lot of virtual agents starting to be applied in a sales capacity. So again, leaning on that appointment booking type scenario, your virtual agents never sleep. So when your customer or your new prospect wakes up at 2 a.m. and sends an email to you, the AI is working outside of hours where your humans might not be. So that type of lead capture and lead qualification type use case, we're seeing AI being applied to that very well. In fact, in Twilio, we run AI for lead capture, and we've got a virtual agent called Isa that is servicing about 85% of the traffic for our sales agents on the first time a customer touches a Twilio website.
Wow, that's wonderful. Chris, so far we've talked a lot about capability, what AI agents can do, but let's talk about what they shouldn't do. Because once agents have access to systems and they take actions, there is a real need for structure. You mentioned earlier this as well, especially in areas like customer data, finance, or compliance-heavy industries. So what are some of the key governance concerns you're hearing from customers as they start to scale agentic AI?
We're seeing quite a variety, and I guess to anchor it on one big topic, it's excessive agency. So thinking about giving the agent, your virtual agent in this case, maybe excessive functionality or excessive permissions or excessive autonomy in what they're able to do. And the way that we're dealing with these challenges as an industry is looking at things like guardrails and prompt injection attacks. But when you're designing your virtual agent, you also need to be asking the question, does this virtual agent need this capability? Does it need that same functionality? Or should there be a little bit of friction in the process? Should there be another check, either by a human or by another agent, a virtual agent, that is just validating whether that's there? And quite similarly, if we think about excessive autonomy, you really need to think through the steps of giving a virtual agent the ability to perform a task or a series of tasks. How could that be used maliciously? Now, there is an emerging set of frameworks out there. I would point to the OWASP project on Gen AI security as a great example of where a lot of the contemplation of this is taking place. And that's an industry-wide body with lots of contributors that are, looking at preventing and mitigating these attacks with different strategies.
Okay. Certainly very important to scale responsibly, I suppose. Now, let's zoom out a bit. We've seen global interests in agentic AI spike, but Southeast Asia is a unique region, mobile first, digitally ambitious, and often quick to adopt when the value is clear. So, Chris, what are you seeing in this part of the world when it comes to adoption? Are businesses here leaning into agentic AI perhaps differently?
They are absolutely leaning in a little differently, a little quicker than maybe cousins in North America as well, which is lovely to see in our region, the acceleration and adoption of this technology. What we're excited to see in this region is we have a few more challenges, a few different challenges. We're not operating in English all the time. We're operating across different languages. We're also operating where we have blending of languages together. And that's something that is only now coming to the fore. But what we're seeing in our customer base is they are already adopting it. They're putting the early use cases out there. And we're experimenting with different voices, in particular for generative speech. And that has come a very long way in the last 12 months. So being able to answer in Mandarin or Cantonese or Bahasa is now something that is quite relevant, and being able to mix and match languages in the same conversation is where we see not just the challenge, but also where we see the payoff will be long-term, or not even long-term, I should say. Even in the short term, we're seeing that demand arise now.
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left, so let's dig into that a little bit. Say the next 12 to 18 months, what trends or shifts should business and tech leaders in the region be watching?
Well, I guess in the coming months, we'll see a lot smarter AI that can speak, it can listen, it can reason, and it can act in real time. So what we've seen so far is most of the virtual bots out there, they're text-based, and you can chat with them, you can input a prompt, and you can get a response back, and that is very powerful. Where our focus is as a company at Twilio is expanding that to every single channel. The channel I'm most excited about right now is voice, because it's such a seamless channel to go have a conversation with, like we are right now. We can communicate our ideas faster. It is more seamless for the end user. So focusing a lot of our attention on capability means that customers of Twilio are able to modernize their IVR systems, their contact centers, for some of those most critical moments, that when a customer picks up the phone and has some demand or some question that they don't want to wait for a response on via a chatbot. It's also a much more intimate channel, speaking to someone rather than, a lot of messaging can be lost behind the screen. We don't really know what we're trying to say in text alone. So that rise of early adopters seeing early value in this space, we think is going to push the market forward. And we also believe that the future won't be just more code. It'll be smarter tools embedded across every customer touch point. And the way that we see that manifesting is with the rise of things like MCP as a standard, the Model Context Protocol, I should say, that is democratizing a lot of the services that organizations have had in the past. And really what that means is for organizations that do offer a service digitally, they can expose their services via MCP and then let these new wave of LLMs and voice AI take advantage of those services very quickly. So that is a whole new space to explore with AI too.
Exciting times ahead, Chris. This has been such an insightful conversation. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Glad to be here.
Thanks again, Christopher Conolly, Director of Solutions Engineering for APJ Communications Business at Twilio. And this is Industry Insight.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.